Hi, it's been a while, but I am back. I am going to be experimenting with different ways to create this content to hopefully bring more eyeballs to it, but also to make the process easier for me so I'm not, wasting so much time writing and editing. So we'll see how that goes. If the experiments don't work, I'll go back to the old way of doing it, but I think this is going to be better. So if you enjoy my content, stick around. More reviews to come. I should also say I'm going to be reviewing some albums I would have reviewed like a month ago. So, if there's like recent releases, maybe I'll drop on them right away, but there's going to be a little bit of a catching up to do. So apologies for that. Although, reviews are timeless. So here's an album from a few months ago.
Freud on Freud, joy on joy.
UK punk and hardcore band Idols have returned for their fifth studio album, Tangk. Tangk? I mean, they spelled it weird, so it's not my fault, but Tangk, I think is how you pronounce it. And yeah, I love Idols. I've been a huge fan of them for their past four albums have been incredible. Their debut, Brutalism, was amazing. Joy as an Act of Resistance is one of my favorite albums of all time. It's just a classic, probably the best album of the last decade. I love that thing. In fact, Idols was the last band that I saw live before the pandemic hit, and I have not been to a concert since that happened. So yeah, I love this band, which is why I was pumped to review this album, which also was produced by Kenny Beats and Nigel Godrich. Now, Kenny Beats produced their last album, Crawler, but Nigel Godrich, this is their first time with producing an Idols album. And for those of you who know the name, Nigel Godrich is, famed Radiohead producer. So I was really excited to see where this album would go. And of course, like with Nigel Godrich, on the board, if you will, it has more of an experimental electronic edge to it. And I'll say edge because it's like, of course it's an Idols album, so you get the very typical hardcore punk Idols sound, but you can hear these little flourishes that are sort of new that Nigel, say, brings to the table. I mean, also Kenny Beats, more so than the last album, you can definitely feel, especially like on tracks like Pop Pop Pop, there is this almost like hip-hop energy to some of these songs. Like, the one main takeaway from this album is it's definitely a lot more dancier, almost has this like pop tinge to it, although of course with like being a punk and hardcore band, it still is like rough around the edges, but there is much more on this album, a sort of like dancey quality to it. And I think that fits the overall sort of like theme of the album, which compared to other Idols albums, which were way more political in nature. And that's not to say that Tangk doesn't have a politic, but it's definitely not as in your face as some of the politics on their previous albums. This album is much more of a breakup album. Breakup, also love, there's a lot of like themes about love, and so I think that does definitely fit more with the pop sort of like energy, right? Even though of course like I'm using these two terms kind of loosely because it's not like it's a pop album, but it definitely has way more pop sensibilities than some of their previous more aggressive albums. And I guess like knowing that going into this, like how does it hold up compared to the rest? This is probably my least favorite Idols album, but in saying that, it isn't something bad, right? The worst Idols album is still going to be better than a lot of other albums out there. I do find that like there are a lot of great tracks on here, like take Gift Horse, for example, or Dancer, which were two of the lead-up singles to this. Even Jungle's Gratitude. These songs have this driving energy, which is exciting and fun and dancey. Like, you're just going to be bouncing the whole time you're listening to it. you're compelled to dance, which, I mean, the song Dancer is literally titled Dancer because you're gonna dance. That's just inevitable, and I love that. But the one thing about this album is, especially compared to some of the previous, is that there's like moments that are a lot more slower paced, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. They have had slower paced songs on previous albums that I think do work really well. I'm thinking particularly the one song off of Joy as an Act of Resistance, where they talk about baby shoes. I can't remember the title of that song exactly, but they have had moments on their albums of slow songs that really are emotionally impactful, heavy in an emotional sense rather than a musical sense. And there's a lot of slower elements on this album, but they just do not hit me as as hard as I might want them to. I'm thinking of songs like Roy or A Gospel or even Grace that I just found so boring. Like, all the soul was sucked out of this band, which is not, I think, the sound that they wanted to go for. I do think as well, like, there are other slow songs on this album that I do think have that emotional heaviness to them. I'm thinking of the opener, Idea 1, or even the closing track, Monolith, which carries this weight to it that really wraps things up into a nice conclusion, And so it's like, I do think they have the capability of making these slower, more impactful songs. It's just like some of them on this album are just stale and boring. They're like filled with emptiness that I just do not find captivating at all. And I think actually part of the problem there is in the lyrics. Granted, I don't think writing about love is bad, or even writing a breakup album is bad or not good. I love a lot of breakup albums. Some of my favorite albums that I had on my year-end list from last year were all breakup albums. So, which is weird coming from me. I've almost been married for 10 years now. But the breakup album is so relatable, even though like no one's broken up with me for a long time, but you could still relate to it. We've all been through that at least some point in our life, right? So breakup albums are classic, and so I don't think it's beyond Idles from making a good breakup album. It just I just didn't feel as emotionally connected to some of the lyrics here. They were a little bit more abstract compared to their political writing, which is more in your face, kind of direct, right? Fascists are bad, which is, fascists are bad. But like that directness really sort of connects with the musical intensity of the song, and it just hits so hard and direct and sounds great. Where these kind of more abstract, kind of like, oh, I love this person, we're breaking up, there's like tension here, it just doesn't translate as well to the Idles energy. And so it feels more, I don't know, disconnected. I'm not as like attached to these songs as I have been on previous Idles albums. And like, there's also these like lyrical motifs. Like he keeps saying on several of the tracks, "Love is the thing," with like an F, thing rather than thing. And I don't quite know what that refers to, but I'm just kind of like, cool. Like, I feel like he was trying to do some sort of connective thread. Like, oh, it's all about love, Love is the thing. But like, why the thing? It must be some sort of like UK slang thing, but it just doesn't land for me. It just comes off kind of like cheesy and weird, But there are some like good lyrical themes on some of the tracks, but they're more on like an individual track by track basis. So, the lyrics of Gift Horse are like really great about loving his daughter and wanting to be there for her. It's a really great song. You also get the lyrics for Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates is just, it's about loving the boys, just you and the boys having a good time. We're just a bunch of boys. And the thing that I love about that too is I feel like that song was written prior to the falling out between Hall & Oates. So I don't know if like Joel Talbot foresaw that they were going to go through some shit, but and maybe the song is like, come on, boys. Give us those good tunes again. Why'd you have to have this falling out, you know? But I don't think that he actually had the foresight there. But and you know what? Rest in peace, Hall & Oates. So that is the most tragic band breakup in a while, even though they haven't really released any albums in a long time. But, you know, Hall & Oates, classics, you know. But all this being said, I do think it is a decent album. I have my criticisms. It's not as good as their previous albums, but it still is an Idols album. It still is great. And I think that in the end, yeah, I would have to give this album a 7 out of 10. So, you know, not a terrible review, but it's probably not going to make my year-end list, you know, sadly. But maybe some of the songs were. There are some great songs on this thing. Again, Gift Horse, Pop, 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 Dancer, Hall & Oates, Jungle, Gratitude, Monolith, all great songs. Yeah, so check this thing out. Don't sleep on it. But yeah, I wish they made a better album,